Shuffle. It is August 24, 2023. It is officially draft day, but that's not this stream. That comes in about an hour and a half from now. Um, this one we're going to be talking about preseason week 2, get some buzz sleepers, breakouts,
And
and
he
I'm
is
flying Ryan Gokers along with.
Tampa Motor Mouth Joel Verlin.
And like I said, sleepers, bust, breakouts, some preseason week 2. Like I said, we got about an hour and a half before our draft starts. We do want to have some downtime between them, so this may
It's
be
a 10-team draft, but you still tend to take those pretty seriously.
Yeah, so we're going to try and do this one a little quicker than normal, which means 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
do we have a quick mode? Does a quick mode actually exist with us? Is that humanly possible?
we have plenty of time to ramble during the draft. So, in theory, we should do less rambling in this podcast. So, anyways, let's start with Joel's got some stuff.
Take one. Let's get this crap done and action.
Preseason week number 2, Joel, you had some things you noticed or talked about or saw that you wanted to bring up. It's like a buy or sell.
Yeah, just going quick and Rudy through this number 1. And you can do sell, buy, whether or not you agree, disagree. Bijan Robinson is worth a round 1 pick in fantasy.
No, he is not worth a first round pick. Rookies can be great, but you usually don't have to pay at the absolute ceiling. Best case scenario, you draft him running back 3. He goes to running back number 1. There's not a lot of upside at that pick. And with rookies, there is the injury risk. There is the rookie wall. That can happen as well. I don't think he's going to be a bust. I don't think he's going to return top 3 running back value. It's definitely possible. He's a talented player. But they are saying Tyler Algier is going to get 175 possible touches this year. We saw this team last year give Caleb Huntley pretty much game domination when it was him and Algier in the backfield with Cordero Patterson as well. So they might do some weird things. Bijan's going to have some weeks where you are going, oh, God, he is a monster. And there's going to be a couple of weeks I think you're going to go, oh, God, I wasted a first round pick on him.
Sort of like the meme where the dog is like muscle dog and the other bone where it's
Yeah, he's going to the middle end of the first round, depending on your league. If he's going the middle end of the second or early third, I think I'm all in with this is probably one of the best picks you can make because there is that upside at that point, going off of running back 10, 12, 13 or so. But going off at running back number 3, especially in like a PPR style of league, because you're giving up on Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs. I mean, I've seen him go ahead of Eckler, Chase, not quite ahead of Jefferson. I did see him in a mock go number 1 overall. That's ridiculous. But for the most part, Tyreek, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, there's some names in there that, especially in the PPR, I'd rather have. And then you have guys like Saquon Barkley and Nick Chubb that just have guaranteed workload, no competition, and have had a history in the league of producing. It's just too rich for my blood. I think he's going to be a great player. I think next year he's going to be a top 5 pick. But I think this year it's just a little hefty. And remember, Kyle Pitts was supposed to be the second coming of Tony Gonzalez or the next Travis Kelce, and hasn't been that so far. I don't think the Falcons are necessarily a team you want to bank your season on like you will with Bijan.
You don't get any extra fantasy points, but he does have his own brand of mustard, apparently.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2.
Again, not a bust. It's not my choice.
Buy or sell number 2. James Cook is the steal of drafts.
Oh, I'm going to say sell. And I'm going to give you the steal of the draft in our sleepers segment. But he's a very good pick. James Cook has immense upside. He could be a 3-down back for the Buffalo Bills with some passing work. However, I do want to remind everybody that Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, they never really got it going where they were great fantasy assets. He probably will return better than his draft position, which for James Cook, as I scroll down, because he is a ways down, James Cook, 85.2. So he's a 7th to 8th to 9th round pick, depending on your league format. Not a bad pick. I'm going to say there's going to be weeks you want him on your team. He's in a very tough division. It's not going to be easy work in those 6 games in the division. It's a tough schedule overall. Not the steal of the draft, but he does have massive amounts of upside. He could be a potential league winner. I have just one or two other people that I like a little bit more, a little bit later with massive, massive upside as well. And the one I'm going to say is the best pick or the best value. No one's really talking about. So we'll get to that in here in the sleepers.
All right, number 3. Now, I know this one is going to probably trigger here. I don't give a
Don't give a
about
ding.
about preseason fantasy. It's easy for me to say. English is a hard language. Yeah, I know you tend not to give a bleep about preseason fantasy. You got it right on the second take. Booyah.
Woo.
But, oh, Damian Pierce, Devin Singletary. Who are you buying or selling?
See, this is where preseason actually does matter. It's the workload and usage with the first team. We saw it with Khalil Herbert in Chicago. Starters on the field, Khalil Herbert is on the field. They do not pull him off with the starters. He is on the field as long as they are. When they pull the starters, Khalil Herbert comes off the field. We're seeing the same thing happen with Damian Pierce in Houston. He's someone that in my draft a couple days ago, I actually took as my running back one, did kind of go 0 RB for a little bit. But I got him in the 5th round as my number 1 running back because the news is he's still going to retain that heavy workload. I think the Texans are going to be a better team. We saw a lot of fight at the end of last year. Those players are a year older. They did get CJ Stroud. That's an upgrade over Davis Mills. Got Will Anderson, who's going to be helping that defense. D'Amico Ryans, I think, is a much better coach than Lovie Smith, what they had last year. So I think this team is poised to improve. How much we'll see. But I think Damian Pierce showed last year when he had good games against the likes of teams like Philadelphia, Kansas City, and Dallas that he can be a viable asset, and he's definitely impressed. He's on the field with the starters. He's off the field when the starters come out of the preseason. The workload appears to be there. He was actually on my sleepers short list. He didn't make it because the other one did. That we'll talk about later. He's got some breakout potential, though. He's not on the breakouts list, but he does have that breakout potential as well to end up being a top 10 running back this year, especially if the Texans are more competitive.
All right, so Kyle Pitts, channeling a little white snake. Here we go again, going down the only road we've ever known, right smack in the middle of the pack for starters, preseason receiving utilization. Boom. Who's ahead of him? Yeah, that would be number 1 slot, Drake London. So, how much concern do you have for Kyle Pitts? And are you buying any shares of Drake London?
I'm not buying any shares of Drake London, mostly because I do believe it's going to be a run first team. They have been the last few years. They didn't draft Bijan number 8 to not run him. They already have said they're going to give Tyler Algier 175 touches. That could be passing, that could be rushing. They're probably going to give 500 plus touches to their running backs. That is just going to make the passing game very, very small in terms of total opportunities. I think Drake London last year was getting 25 to 30% of the targets, and it amounted to 3 targets a game with the Falcons. Desmond Ridder is still there. Maybe if Tyler Heineke took the starting job away, I'd start buying in a little bit more. But as far as Kyle Pitts, I want to see it before I draft him. He was a colossal bust last year. He was good his first year, didn't return on his value first year, but that was unrealistic. I would rather wait and take an Evan Ingram, Pat Fryermuth, the Chigakonkwo, and just say I'm going to get it on the cheap with a lot of upside as opposed to paying up in what is, let's see, on Sleeper. He's the 60th pick off the board, so he's a late 5th, early 6th in a 12-team league. He's going just ahead of Dallas Goedert, who I'm very high on, just behind Darren Waller, who I'm very high on. Kyle Pitts is just not in the right spot. One of my busts is kind of just that same thing, a good player not in the right spot of the draft, and I don't want any Falcons. If it's not Bijan at a discount, I don't want any Falcons at all. Other than Tyler Algier as a late round dart throw, Bijan goes down. Oh my God, the workload is there.
Right. Speaking of workloads potentially being there early, later on, you had DJ Chark with an injury. So, what does that do to the name of one Jonathan Mingo?
I don't think Mingo is a thing this year, mostly because Bryce Young is a rookie quarterback. He's a rookie receiver. This is not going to be a great team. They're going to go through Miles Sanders for the most part. Miles Sanders, they brought him in on pretty good running back money. We see what's going on with Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, not getting those big money deals. Saquon having to take a $900,000 benefit to sign a 1-year deal. So he avoided the franchise tag. When a team brings in a running back and pays them money, it usually means they're going to be a big part of the workload, which I do want to mention. David Montgomery got a pretty good contract as well. They drafted Jahmyr Gibbs highly, so there's a little concern with me on Gibbs, but that's a whole different thing. But if you pay a running back, you're typically going to use them. Same thing with Zeke Elliott, $8.6 million. We'll talk a little bit about Ramondre here in a little bit. But I think Jonathan Mingo's got a very bright future. I think this year it's going to be Sanders 1, then Thielen as the number 1 receiver if Chark is out. Mingo will get some play, maybe late season. He's going to be like the Amon-Ra St. Brown a couple years ago when he was a rookie. Didn't do it. All of a sudden it caught fire late. Maybe that's his role this year, but I think year 2, year 3, Dynasty, you want to go get him if you can while he's still cheap, but I don't think this year's the year. I think next year and the year after is going to be when he really has his breakout.
All right, trying to keep things moving ahead at a good clip here. Do you think it's time to embrace the Sam Howell hype?
Yes, I do. I think Washington's going to surprise some teams. I don't think they're going to win that division. I think Philadelphia is still too good, even with the turnover they had. Dallas, I think, could take a step back. The Giants overachieved last year. I don't think they made their team much better outside of Darren Waller. They still don't have a good passing offense. The Cowboys got a new offensive coordinator because they were scoring points too fast, too many, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. I think the Commanders could be a second-place team in that division. I think Sam Howell could be not necessarily the best quarterback in the division, but he could be challenging Dak for number 2 very quickly. Terry McLaurin, Johan Dotson, Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson. There's good weapons, a good defense. It could be a surprising team. So I'm going to buy into Sam Howell. Again, he's probably not going to go drafted in most leagues. Somebody you want to keep an eye on waivers after the first week or two. They are playing Arizona week 1, so daily lineups and streamers who don't want to go after a quarterback at all still, he could be a great option against Arizona week 1.
Okay, we've got, of course, Christensen Watson from the Packers now, of course, with Jordan Love under center, not Mr. Darkness Retreat. Aaron Rodgers, of course, going to the Jets. Jets, I know your favorite team, not. But Packers, what about some of their rookie pass catchers, some of the other ones? How much of a dart throw are they worth?
I'll say this, Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, they're going to be the 1-2 in that roster. I don't think the rookies get involved this year in the wide receivers. I could see Luke Musgrave at tight end being a thing later in the year. Rookie tight ends have a hard time getting their career moving, but I think he, of the rookies on that roster, has the best opportunity. I do think Jordan Love is going to be more capable than we might have thought of a month ago. I think that's still going to be a team that utilizes Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon heavily to keep the ball moving and take some pressure off of Jordan Love. But Jordan Love has shown in the preseason he can make the good throws and keep the ball moving when things stall out or when they need to go through the air. So I don't think the rookie pass catcher is going to be a thing this year. They did invest heavily last year. They did invest in the tight ends. I think Musgrave's the best option of the rookies. But down the line, we'll see. I mean, this is a whole new offense, so to predict much consistently from what we saw last year and the year prior with Aaron Rodgers, kind of a fool's errand. I still think the top 2 are going to be the top 2.
All right, I know everything is all about Hollywood and Arizona, but question, what about Mr. Wilson right behind Mr. Hollywood?
I mean, you got Michael Wilson, the rookie, who's got some upside. You still have Rondale Moore, who hasn't really had a breakout, who is going to be the number 2. I think there's value to both of those guys down the line. I don't think they're going to be the number 1. You still have Greg Dortch there as well, who I think is going to get the number 2 opportunities first.
Yeah, he's battling for touches with the other tight end.
Yeah, I mean, you have Ertz and you have McBride, and then, Greg Dortch out there. So there's a lot of pass catchers. None of them as good as Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown's going to be the number 1. We saw how good he was without DeAndre Hopkins last year before Hopkins come back and Hollywood got hurt. So I think Michael Wilson, I have him in a couple dynasty rosters. I'm happy to have him. Happy to have him on my taxi squad that I'm not going to touch this year. He's going to sit. and we'll see what he is next year. But I don't think he's got value this year. Again, give it one more year. But Rondale Moore could have a breakout potential. I'm not necessarily guessing that's going to happen and predicting that's going to happen. But Greg Dortch could be a thing. But I don't think you want to invest in the Cardinals outside of Hollywood Brown, James Conner, and maybe in a deeper league, a Kyler Murray for when he comes back.
All right, and wrapping up with the name that I'm sure will cause a lot of fantasy football. We're all ballers. That's easy for me to say. We're having problems with the English EXE subroutine tonight, so hang on. I'm going to reboot it right now. Beep. But yes, a name that will cause a lot of fantasy footballers. Hey, got it out. Second take.
Woo!
To end up probably causing a little bit of shuddering inside when I mention the name Allen Robinson, but they're still going to play a lot.
Um, Allen Robinson is a turd. And that's the nicest way. I have him on a dynasty roster because he's too good and not that old to drop, because dynasty rosters, the waiver wire is trash because you have so many guys on a roster. But I cannot trade him. I cannot play him. He's just filling a roster spot. If he breaks out, that's great. Leave him on waivers. I don't trust that at all. Pittsburgh, I think, is going to have a good year. I think they're going to have some breakout opportunity and some upside and possible playoff contention, but I don't think Allen Robinson's the reason for that.
So that's the pretty much that was from the My Fantasy Life football takeaways from week 2 of the NFL preseason, kind of a truncated version because some things I left out because I was like, it's not really relevant. So, and I know we're trying to move on.
All right. So, Joel, I don't know if you have any bust sleepers or breakouts, but I'll let you.
Which are we starting with?
I'll let you pick. Go ahead.
Well, let's go ahead and I've got well, we can start busts first.
All right, we're going to start negative. That's where my mind started too.
As a very first name, this name came up within a podcast I was listening to, and when you listen to 2 videos in a row, and the same name comes up as a bust, you just sort of go, huh. As definitely name popping up would be one DeAndre Hopkins, as his age and recent history can't be discounted. Last time he passed season and tipped 100,000 yards was in 2020. And as you think, the fact that he's in a offense that's pretty much when you have a team that's pretty much been anointed the name the Tennessee Derrick Henrys by pretty much the entire fan base. And you also think that Tennessee is ranked 30th or lower in pass attempts in each of the past 3 years. Unlikely change this year, that quote from Bleacher Report. And you look at Tennessee is really, as we all know, like I said, they're the Tennessee Derrick Henrys, and their offense lives and dies with King Henry himself. When he's good, they win and they do amazing things. Their whole offense is vibrant. And when he isn't, not so much. But with how much of the fantasy feast will still be left for D Hop to eat when it comes around to him each and every week, my first bust, yep, that's going to be one DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, I agree that Hopkins isn't going to be what you're hoping. I know he's going at the end of the 4th round of a 12-team league. I'd rather have Cooper. I'd rather take the shot on DJ Moore. Jerry Jeudy with a bad injury today kind of comes off the board, and Terry McLaurin with turf toe a little bit off the board there as well. But they're in that range as well. Christian Watson a little bit later. I agree that it's going to be Derrick Henry. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to help Derrick Henry a lot just by taking at least one extra guy out of the box, giving more running lanes, because you have to respect DeAndre Hopkins. Ryan Tannehill can throw the ball. And if you let DeAndre Hopkins get one-on-one coverage every single time, eventually Tannehill's just going to say, okay, you're going to lose to DeAndre Hopkins. But I think with Treylon Burks, DeAndre Hopkins, and Chig Okonkwo, that's going to take enough pressure off that front line. It's going to be a big boost for Derrick Henry this year. I don't know if I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to return his 4th-round pick status. I don't know if I'd call it a full-on bust. I think you're going to be disappointed with the pick, though, down the line, so maybe that's it.
You
Um,
you want me to do my second
yeah, go
bust?
ahead and do your list, and then I'll do mine.
Oh, okay. Or do you want to do yours and we'll alternate?
I've got three, so
Okay,
let's
do
finish your
mine and
list,
then
and
you do
yeah.
yours. Okay, my second one. Saddens me to say this one, especially with this cap. You
Oh, it's
probably
Godwin or
know
Evans.
where I'm going with this one. I'm gonna do some bacon. Is everyone's trying to talk up Baker Mayfield? Key point number one, because I even saw a whole narrative that Baker could be this year's Geno Smith, and you're trying to talk yourself into this. You're going, you get the thinker cap on, right? You're like this. You're like,
Hmm.
You sort of go into meditation. You do all the home, and you're trying to buy yourself into it. But key point number one, he's Baker.
So the bust is Baker Mayfield here.
Yes, Baker
Okay.
Mayfield, as even with CMC in the lineup, he ended up being traded and wanted out. Do we remember how he did with CMC in the lineup? Yeah, Carolina wasn't exactly fantastic those first few weeks of last season. Yeah, they were pretty darn forgettable. It wasn't until Sam Darnold actually took over and you had a little PJ Walker thrown in there, but uh, as not exactly good. He ended up getting traded, of course, from to Carolina from Cleveland. Then he ended up in Tampa with a brief stop over in, of course, L.A., where he shined. Of course, that first game, everyone was like, "Oh, he's a savior. He's this, he's that." Then he's just a mediocre quarterback at best, maybe being a desperate.
So it wasn't the router. We'll wait for him to come back once again. Some things never change. Joel on the down for Baker Mayfield. Not a huge surprise. I know as a Bucks, a lot of Bucks fans I know are not thrilled with Baker Mayfield as we get Joel back involved. And Joel, it clearly wasn't the router.
Key
Eh,
Ducky. Anyway, as I believe I was talking about. He ended up getting traded from Carolina to Cleveland, and of course winding up in Tampa. Mediocre quarterback at best, maybe a desperate streaming option late, because I don't think you want to do that to yourself in fantasy football 2023. He's basically free, but as my dad, R.I.P., you always said, you always get what you pay for. As a 2020 was probably his best year. Baker had to win the starting job competition from Trask, from Kyle Trask. Bruh. Best quote I saw on social media came from Reddit. Quote, Baker is a fine pick in the 30th or 35th round. That was from Greg and then GERB77 from Reddit. Good quote for you.
Baker Mayfield, he's not being drafted, so it's hard to call him an outright bust. I, he could be the Geno Smith of this year. And that's not crazy to say. It's also not crazy for him to be compared to him because we all thought Geno was done and we kind of think Baker's done and Geno came out and balled out. He has two good weapons. So there's some similarities. I think Baker's going to be fine. I think that's a bad enough division. He's going to have some good games, some bad games. Not someone you want in fantasy, but so be it. And then any more busts on your end or no?
Nope, just those two.
All right. I went a little more spicy.
Oh, I did have another one because of today. I did add Jerry Judy for today
Well,
bust.
yeah, whenever you got someone injured, it's kind of tough to call him a bust because it's injury. All right, my first one doesn't pay me to say it, but it kind of does. Ramondre Stevenson. Going at the early third round, they did pay $8.6 million to Ezekiel Elliott. They're not going to bring him in to be a change of pace back. He is going to get some work. Um, ooh, uh, Bucks rookie Sean Tucker split first team reps with Rashad White in a move the ball period of practice. Interesting. But Ramondre Stevenson, we know the Patriots love to play with multiple running backs. They've always done that, so I don't think his upside is as high as people are going to say. I do think some of that passing game work that was really going to drive him to possible top 3, top 4 running back is gone with Zeke Elliott there. And I just have a funny feeling this Patriots team gonna have to throw the ball more than they would like to. Reminder Stevenson, I just don't believe he's going to be what you're drafting in that third round, especially when you're going near the likes of Etienne, Harris, Pollard, and even down the line with Joe Mixon 10 picks later. I think it is just a better opportunity there. Number 2, not a big surprise here, CeeDee Lamb. Drafting him early in the second round. I already mentioned the Cowboys changing offensive coordinators because they went from I'm scoring too fast and too often, the defense needs a rest, to bring in someone who's going to have a slower paced offense, more on the ground work. Michael Gallup another year healthy. Brandon Cooks in the lineup. I just think that the passing volume is going to decrease for the Cowboys, and I think it's going to be spread around more than it ever has been. So CeeDee Lamb, second round pick, no thank you. And number 3, a player that's just in the wrong spot of the draft, in my opinion, is TJ Hawkinson. You're having to draft him very early on in the draft. He's going off at the tight end 3, late fourth round. And if I'm going to spend up, I'd rather wait another whole round and a half later to get Darren Waller. I've already mentioned Goddard, Ingram, and Freiermuth, who you can get a little bit later as well. I know he's going to have some big games, but his tight end 2 finish last year was on the back of 2 massive, massive games. And that means it's not going to be a great season. It's just going to have a couple big spike weeks. So I'm out on TJ Hawkinson as well. He is just too expensive. I'd rather pay up for Andrews, or I'd rather wait and take it someone way down the line. And then let's move into sleepers. Joel.
Right. First one, name we already mentioned, but this one has definitely affected Tyler Aguilar, as I definitely think I note that average ADP 166, running back 47 off the board consensus. But even though he ended up as the Falcons' number 1 back last year, right now he's basically forgotten, as all of a sudden the team picked, of course, Bijan Robinson. But just based on how fantasy plays out, TA might snipe some points. And if anything happens to Bijan, you mentioned it just, that is going to be one of those picks. You're going to be like the guy behind the tree with the meme going, give me that lovely, delicious fantasy points. Oh, yeah. And all those targets and goal line carries. So, something for the future, but we've seen the NFL can be oof. And then my second one, just for some reason, just running backs, just they seem to be just maybe as volatile as starting pitchers in baseball. Rough time of it recently for that for that venue for that profession, as well as just oof. But Tank Bigsby might be worth a little bit of a bump up, because if you have any concern over ETN, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who has the concern over Travis Etienne. I mean, definitely worth a dart throw for Tank. Don't expect RB1 numbers right away. You might be on the flex, might just sort of keep him on your bench, but someone who is a deep dive week 1 can suddenly shoot up, as I said, with Tyler Aguilar, with how brutal this NFL season. And all of a sudden, we've seen names Tyler Aguilar, Tank Bigsby, when it's late in the season. That last push into fantasy playoff relevance has been dominated by those names that you go, who is that? Who are these freaking guys? And usually, every single year, I mean, you do have your studs and the usual people that but you always have the smattering of names that, who the heck are these guys?
Yeah, Tank is going to be a good option. And Tyler Algier, again, if one of those guys goes down, they are just absolutely going to go crazy. And I think they're going to have enough role to be on rosters as it is. So I agree with both of those. All right, my first sleeper, what I think is the best value in fantasy drafts, period. And that is Brian Robinson of the Washington Commanders. He's going in the 9th or 10th round. He is the starting running back. He might not have that receiving upside, but I did hear a comparison to him being basically what J.K. Dobbins is in the same kind of role. Limited passing upside, going to be a little touchdown dependent, heavy on the rush attempts, but you're getting him 5 rounds later. You're getting a number 1 running back in round number 10 for a team that I think is going to be better than expectations at the end of last year. Remember, he got shot in the buttocks a la Forrest Gump's, Lieutenant Dan got shot in the buttocks. Yeah. Yeah. The best part about getting shot in the buttocks is the ice cream. Anyways, after he recovered and came back, he was on a monster 1,500 yards a season pace for the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season. I think he can replicate that, especially if this offense is any better. Remember, they had Heineke, they had Wentz, and then they tried it with Sam Howell, and it was pretty good. And Brian Robinson's biggest games was when Sam Howell was in the lineup. So I think the hype on Antonio Gibson, who's actually going to round and a half, 2 rounds earlier, is a little overblown. He's going to be the J.D. McKissick type of role, which, was a pain for those who drafted Antonio Gibson in round number 4, round number 5, or round number 2 in some drafts back in the day. But you're getting Brian Robinson at such a discount, and he's going to be a very, very good running back. And there's really no risk. If he fails, he's going to be a running back 4, running back 5. On the league where I drafted Dameon Pierce, Brian Robinson is my number 3. He's in my starting lineup week number 1 because Pierce is playing Baltimore, where Robinson is playing the Cardinals. So there's going to be weeks where you want Brian Robinson on your team and in your lineup, and you're getting him in round number 10. Absolute sleeper, should be higher. Next up, rookie tight end for the Detroit Lions, Sam Laporta. He's going for next to nothing, but he has an extensive college profile of catching the ball very well. The Lions like to throw to the tight end. They got rid of one of their tight ends that filled in after they got rid of Hawkinson last year. So I think Laporta can step into a big role. Rookie tight ends are at risk. Probably not somebody you're going to want to draft, somebody you're going to want to have on the back of your mind for the waivers. If you're in a dynasty league, you might be able to get them, but as a rookie in a dynasty, it's kind of tough to do. So I think Laporta could really pop off. And number 3, and I can already hear the I told you so from Massachusetts now. Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love is the real deal. I remember when we drafted Tua in Miami, there was a part of me that wanted to say, let's go get the top offensive lineman and let's go get something around this and then go for Jordan Love or Jalen Hurts later. Jalen Hurts would have been better than Tua so far in his career. We will see if that continues. But Jordan Love, I've been very impressed with the highlights I've seen in the preseason. I do think he is going to sustain a couple of good options in the passing game. It's probably going to start off a little slow. Like I said, I think they're going to go heavy on the running game, and that's not going to change all season, but they will slowly open it up as he gets a little bit more game action under his belt. He is not a rookie. He's in his 4th year, and he's been sitting behind one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So I could see a scenario where Jordan Love at the end of the year is going to be looked at like Geno Smith was at the end of the year. Like, wow, what an absolute steal who never got drafted. So, Joel, breakouts now.
Oh, you mean like value?
Yeah, I mean, you want to go value. I have some breakouts, guys, I think are just going to possibly explode this season. So if you got values, I got breakouts. We'll do it that way.
Oh, okay, yeah, we can turn value into either one works.
Okay.
I've got the first. So you want me to go first again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, first one, a name, Christian Watson, of course. Now, the reason why I
of the Green Bay Packers pairs with my Jordan Love take, doesn't it?
Why I consider this a breakout / value / whatever you want to call it is because you're going to have Watson undervalued because the Aaron Rodgers Jordan Love tandem and everyone thinking, oh, okay, Jordan Love is no Aaron Rodgers. So still, if the second half of Watson's rookie season is any indication of what's to come, the Packers definitely have a weapon on their hands, no matter whatever the QB situation is. As from the value here is once again because everyone's going to be overlooking because of the Rodgers to Love transition. Watson tends to go 24th after Jerry Jeudy, of course, who was carted off from practice today, and before Drake London, CW goes in round 5.
Yeah, late round 5, early round 6. Tough to call it a value, but he definitely has some breakout potential. I did mention Jordan Love, I think, is going to be the real deal. So I can't argue against Christian Watson being what could be an absolute breakout or a steal at the value of the end of the 5th, early 6th.
Okay, ready for my second value?
Go ahead.
Second value, and this one I know could probably some people will agree and some people will say, okay, what's he smoking? And I'm not smoking anything, but while everyone is looking at a Hertz, Mahomes, Allen, okay, if you're crazy enough to do something like a zero RB or a zero WR or something totally cray like that, here's a value QB dart throw. And oh boy, this is going to be our dart throw. So get ready because everyone's looking at all the sexy QBs. Because I heard one of the things is don't look at what round you're at, look at which QBs are off the board. Because all of a sudden you're noticing everyone's going WRs, WR, or running back, WR. And then all of a sudden, then you hit that run on QBs and you're just like, what happened to everybody? So here's one that's kind of, if you're feeling daring, if you're feeling crazy, Kenny freaking Pickett. He goes in round 14 after Stafford and Carr, who will be somebody's starting quarterback, especially in a 16-team league. Now, I don't know if you want to be crazy if you're in a 10-team league, maybe stash him as a backup if you're really like going, well, okay, we really need a backup. We really need a backup. But I don't think it's as important to do a backup in a 10-team league. You usually have enough depth out there on the waiver wire. 16-team, different
Yeah.
story. You have the feeling that he's ready to take the next step. There is a lot of traction that the Steelers could take the division. He has some good weapons around him, like Najee Harris and Deontay Johnson. And someone's going to pay attention to, might be a bit of a sexy pick, as he's going to just sort of fall through the cracks with a lot of drafters. Like I said, hell of a dart throw, but I think there's some value with Kenny Pickett.
Yep. I agree. There's some potential upside there. I think the Steelers could take a step in the right direction. They were above 500 last year. They seem to get it going at the end of the year. All right, my first breakout, and it's Romeo Doubs going to the Green Bay Packers. It's similar argument you said to Christian Watson, but you're getting him 13th, 14th round. You might get him undrafted. I know in the league I just drafted, there's a point in the draft, like the 10th, 11th round. I hate my options. I said, screw it. I know there's a Packers fan in this draft. I know they're high on Romeo Doubs. I'm going now when there's a lot of options I don't like, and I'm taking him early. I don't care. But I think he has been Jordan Love's favorite target. I think he has a little more athleticism with receiving the ball, not necessarily once the ball's in his hands. I think Christian Watson is better straight line runner, juke, and all that. But I think Romeo Doubs is better playing the ball in the air a little bit, slightly better hands as well. And again, I think Jordan Love and Romeo Doubs got a lot of time last year when Doubs was a fringe starter, got some work with the twos, and now he is the favorite target for Jordan Love. And I think Jordan Love's going to be good. So by default, I think Romeo Doubs has a shot to completely break out. Number 2, and this one would have been more of a call than it is now a couple weeks ago, and that's Khalil Herbert of the Chicago Bears. We saw him with the starters. It wasn't clear 2 weeks ago. Now he's with the starters. We saw him have a big play in a preseason game already. Bears are going to want to run the ball. You do have to worry about Justin Fields taking some of the rushing upside of Khalil Herbert, but he can get it done in the passing game as well. He has always had a pretty good track record when he filled in for David Montgomery in the past, so I think he's going to be very good going forward into this season. And number 3, as much as I hate to say it because, well, I was a believer last year too, but that was a 5th round pick last year. Gabe Davis, I think the injury to his ankle kind of slowed his season down. He got it very early on, was off to a pretty good start, and then it just kind of fell apart slowly. You're getting Gabe Davis in the 8th, 9th round. I think he's a good value, and he could properly go as the 1B to Stephon Diggs in an offense. I think Dalton Kincaid's going to get enough attention that might free him up a little bit more than we're expecting. And Gabe Davis is an absolute burner, can get behind the defense. We saw what he did in that AFC Championship game against Kansas City a couple years ago. He's going to have burst games, and I think he's going to be a lot more consistent this year. Not necessarily a starting wide receiver, but there's going to be weeks you want him in your lineup as a flex option, if not your wide receiver too, because he's going to be just an absolute weapon. All right, Joel, if you got a final thought, go ahead and fire one out. If not, we can wrap this up a little bit on time.
Oh, I'll just make mine very quick. You're probably having a better week than Kevin Hart.
Well, that's not hard to say.
Kevin, are you ready for this headline?
Go ahead.
Kevin Hart tears abdomen, winds up in wheelchair after racing former NFL Stephon Ridley. As of course, this from the author of those courses, Austin Nivenson. Hopefully, I said that right. Challenging a former NFL running back to a foot race is never a good idea, especially if you're a 44-year-old comedian. Kevin Hart learned that lesson the hard way.
You gonna learn today?
And now he is in a wheelchair for the time being. Hart posted a video to Instagram, which he explained his injury. He and Ridley got into an argument about who would win in a race, so they decided to settle it by running a 40-yard dash. As you might expect, it did not go well for the world-famous comedian. Hart said he tore multiple muscles in his abdomen, and he laid out his injuries in agonizing detail. He also said the incident served as a stark reminder that he is no longer a spring chicken. So just in case you think you're having a rough week, Kevin Hart probably outdid you.
That reminds me of the Tom Segura basketball injury. Another comedian who really got messed up playing basketball. He blew his knee and put his elbow going the wrong direction.
Ouch.
If you're a comedian, maybe don't try and do athletic things because you are probably better doing something else. I'm going to skip final thought because I want some downtime before the draft. The draft tonight's not going to be as long as the one Saturday.
Breaking Sports Shuffle actually almost finishes on time. Film at 11.
45 minutes is a goal. We're only at 42:10. So we even have 2 minutes to talk about nothing, but we're not going to take it. So, draft here in a little bit if you happen to be watching this live. If not, it'll be posted as well. And, not as long tonight as it will be on Saturday, but still enough where I want a little bit of a break, get everything set up, tested, because last year everything went wrong, and we don't want that to happen yet again.
We're kind of in Toastmasters mode tonight called Red Light, wrap it up, shut up, red light, red light. Yeah.
With that said, I am Flying Ryan Go Crystal along with
Tampa Motormouth, Joel Verone,
trying not to choke while drinking. We'll be live shortly with our Sports Shuffle fans 10-team live draft coverage. And for this episode, we gone.